There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart, when the plans you made, the dreams you built, and the people you trusted all seem to fade away. And in those moments, your mind becomes your battlefield. You begin to ask, why me? Why now? Why is this happening? But here's the truth, not everything falling apart means life is against you. Sometimes it's falling apart so it can fall into place. Perspective creates peace when you realize that life is not about what happens to you, but how you interpret what happens to you. Every single moment carries two truths, what is visible and what is meaningful. The visible part is what you experience through your senses, the failures, the rejections, the loss, the waiting. But the meaningful part is what your mind chooses to make out of those experiences. That's where peace is born. Peace doesn't come from control, it comes from perception. When your perspective is grounded in gratitude and growth, the chaos outside can't shake the calm inside. You cannot control the waves, but you can learn how to surf them. You can't stop life from bringing challenges, but you can choose how to face them. That choice, that small moment between reaction and response, defines your strength. Most people react because their focus is trapped in the pain of the present. They allow circumstances to dictate their emotions, forgetting that emotions are reflections of attention. What you pay attention to becomes your reality. If you focus on what's missing, you'll always feel lack. If you focus on what's working, you'll always find strength. Perspective is like a lens. When the lens is dirty with fear, doubt, or negativity, everything you see feels distorted. But when you clean that lens with faith and gratitude, even the hardest seasons begin to look purposeful. A negative mind will never give you a positive life. The moment you decide to focus on what you can control, your attitude, your effort, your energy, you begin to free yourself from the illusion that peace depends on perfect conditions. Peace begins when you stop fighting what is and start finding meaning in it. Every person who has overcome great odds has one thing in common: they shifted their focus. They stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what can I learn from this? That single change transforms frustration into fuel. The same situation that breaks one person can build another, not because the situation was different, but because their perspective was. Perspective is power. It determines whether a challenge becomes a wall or a window. A wall stops you, but a window lets you see beyond the obstacle. When you train your mind to see the good, you start building emotional resilience. You begin to realize that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of perspective. There's always something to appreciate, even in pain. Maybe the loss taught you empathy. Maybe the rejection redirected you towards something better. Maybe the delay gave you time to prepare for what's next. You can either let life harden your heart or shape your vision. And that's a decision only you can make. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means acknowledging the storm, but choosing to focus on the strength it's creating in you. Every time you choose to see the good, you are reprogramming your brain to handle adversity with wisdom instead of fear. You are teaching yourself to stay calm in uncertainty, to stay kind in chaos, to stay hopeful when others give up. That's what it means to be the creator of your response. Peace is not found by avoiding challenges. It's found by changing the way you see them. When you live with a perspective that says, everything is working for me, not against me, you stop being a prisoner of circumstances. You stop waiting for perfect conditions to be happy. You start realizing that every experience, good or bad, is shaping you into someone wiser, stronger, and more grounded. The day you master your perspective, you master your peace. Gratitude is the quiet strength that steadies your heart when everything around you feels uncertain. It is not about ignoring pain or pretending life is perfect. It's about choosing to see what's still good even when things aren't going your way. Fear thrives on absence, the absence of control, the absence of answers, the absence of certainty. Gratitude, on the other hand, focuses on presence, what's here, what's working, what's still beautiful in the middle of chaos. The moment you shift your attention from what you've lost to what you still have, fear begins to lose its grip on your mind. Gratitude is not a reaction, it's a practice. It's something you cultivate daily, especially when you least feel like it. When fear whispers that you don't have enough, gratitude reminds you that you already do. Fear says, "What if this doesn't work out?" Gratitude says, "Even if it doesn't, I'll find another way." Fear feeds on scarcity. Gratitude feeds on abundance. They cannot live in the same space. That's why grateful people radiate calm even in storms, because they see blessings where others see burdens. It's easy to be grateful when life feels comfortable. The real power of gratitude is discovered in discomfort, in moments when the future feels unclear and everything inside you wants to panic. Gratitude doesn't erase the struggle, but it transforms the way you walk through it. It reminds you that every breath is a gift, every challenge a lesson, and every delay an act of divine timing. You begin to realize that nothing is truly missing, it's just being rearranged for your growth. When you practice gratitude, your energy changes. You begin to respond instead of react. You notice the little things, a friend's message, a sunrise, the peace of a quiet moment, and those small moments become anchors that keep you steady in uncertainty. Gratitude grounds you in the now. Fear pulls you into the future, imagining everything that could go wrong. But gratitude roots you in what's real, reminding you that this moment, right here, is enough. The human mind has a natural tendency to focus on problems. It's wired to protect you from danger. But when you don't train it, that same instinct turns against you, making you see threats where there are none. Gratitude is how you rewire that pattern. Every time you consciously thank life for what's here, you're teaching your brain to look for good instead of danger. Over time, this rewiring shifts your emotional baseline. You become calmer, more hopeful, more resilient. You begin to understand that gratitude is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the realization that control was never the goal, connection was. Fear isolates, gratitude connects. Fear says you're alone. Gratitude says you're supported. And when you start to count your blessings instead of your burdens, your perspective transforms. You stop feeling like life owes you something and start realizing that life has already given you so much. Every person walking through uncertainty has two choices: to focus on what's missing or to focus on what's present. One leads to anxiety, the other to peace. Gratitude doesn't change the external situation, but it changes your internal state so completely that the same storm feels different. The noise quiets down, the panic fades. You begin to see opportunities that fear had blinded you to. In every moment, there is something to be grateful for: a lesson, a relationship, a breath. Gratitude doesn't deny reality, it deepens it. It allows you to see beyond the surface, to recognize that even pain has purpose, that even loss leaves gifts behind. The person who learns to say thank you in the middle of uncertainty becomes unstoppable, because they no longer depend on perfect circumstances to feel whole. Gratitude transforms fear into faith, scarcity into sufficiency, and waiting into trust. It doesn't change the world around you, but it absolutely changes the world within you, and that's where peace begins. Faith works in silence, in the moments when life feels still, uncertain, and painfully slow. It is in those unseen hours when prayers seem unanswered and progress feels invisible that the deepest transformation takes place. Silence doesn't mean absence, it often means preparation. The quiet seasons of life are not wasted time, they are sacred time. This is where strength is built, where roots grow deep, and where God aligns things you can't yet see. Just because nothing seems to be moving on the surface doesn't mean something powerful isn't shifting beneath it. We live in a world that glorifies speed and visibility. We want instant answers, immediate signs, quick validation. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith is trusting the process even when you can't measure the progress. It's believing that the seed is growing underground, even when there's no sign of life above it. You don't question a seed just because it hasn't sprouted in a week. You water it, you trust it, you wait. That's what faith looks like. It's quiet, it's patient, and it's powerful. When everything around you feels silent, it's easy to think that nothing is happening. You start to doubt, to overthink, to wonder if maybe God has forgotten you. But the truth is, silence is often the sound of divine work. Behind every delay there is design. Behind every closed door there is protection. Behind every unanswered prayer there is preparation for something greater. Faith is the courage to keep walking even when you can't see the road ahead, to keep believing even when the evidence is missing. Sometimes the most significant work happens where no one is watching. The seasons of silence are where character is shaped and clarity is born. It's where your patience, humility, and trust are tested. Because if everything came easy, you'd never need faith. It's in waiting that faith becomes real. It's in the quiet that you learn to rely on something greater than your own understanding. Faith doesn't ask for proof. It creates peace in uncertainty. Think about how many times you thought nothing was happening, only to look back and realize that everything was falling into place. The job that didn't work out, the relationship that ended, the door that stayed shut, all of it was part of a bigger plan that made sense only in hindsight. That's the beauty of faith. It allows you to keep walking without needing to see the whole map. It teaches you to rest in the truth that God is always working, not sometimes, not occasionally, but always. Faith doesn't need noise to be alive. It grows strongest in stillness. When the world goes quiet, that's when you hear the whispers of direction, purpose, and growth. The silence forces you to listen, to reflect, to strengthen your inner foundation. It's in those unseen moments that endurance is born. Because when your faith survives the silence, you become unshakable in the storm. So when nothing seems to move, trust that movement is still happening, just not in ways you can measure. The pieces are being aligned, the right people are being prepared, and the right timing is being set. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that the silence wasn't a pause. It was a setup. Faith works quietly, like the roots of a tree anchoring it before it ever bears fruit. You don't see the roots, but they are what make the tree strong enough to withstand the wind. In the same way, your unseen seasons are strengthening you for what's coming. Every unanswered question, every silent prayer, every waiting moment, it's not wasted. It's working, and when the time is right, everything you've been hoping for will rise from the silence stronger, wiser, and perfectly timed. Every delay has purpose, though in the moment it rarely feels that way. When life seems to pause, when doors stay closed and answers don't arrive, our first instinct is frustration. We think something has gone wrong. We assume we're being held back or forgotten. But often, the delay is not a denial. It's divine preparation. What feels like waiting is usually working quietly, intentionally, and perfectly timed beyond what you can yet understand. The moments that feel the slowest are often the ones that are shaping you the most. Waiting tests your patience, but more importantly, it refines your character. In the stillness, you learn things that motion could never teach you. You learn to listen instead of rush. You learn to trust instead of control. You begin to see that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about being still long enough to let things fall into place. Growth doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like maintenance, maturity, and mental clarity being built beneath the surface. When you're in a hurry, you see the delay as a threat to your dreams. But when you grow in understanding, you realize that the delay might be the very thing protecting your destiny. Sometimes God slows you down because you're not ready for what you're asking for. Sometimes He's still preparing the people, the place, or the opportunity that needs to align with your path. A delay is often the space where divine coordination takes place, where timing, strength, and wisdom meet. If everything came when you wanted it, you might not have the capacity to handle it. The delay builds that capacity. It stretches your patience, deepens your faith, and strengthens your foundation so that when the opportunity finally comes, you can stand on it without collapsing. What looks like inactivity is often invisible construction, the building of your future brick by brick behind the scenes. It's easy to believe in purpose when things are happening quickly. It's much harder when you're waiting, when prayers echo in silence and results refuse to show up. But that's where true faith is formed, in the in-between. In the slow spaces where nothing seems to be changing. The delay forces you to stop relying on what you can see and start trusting in what you can't. It's a sacred invitation to grow beyond impatience and step into alignment with something greater than your plan. Think of every delay as preparation for longevity. Quick success can fade, but success built in patience endures. The waiting period teaches you responsibility, humility, and endurance, the kind of strength that keeps you steady when things finally start moving. Every great story has chapters of stillness, and those chapters are not wasted. They are the foundation on which everything else stands. So when things slow down, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this preparing me for?" That one question transforms your perspective. You stop fighting the delay and start learning from it. You begin to see that the pause is not punishment, it's protection. It's life's way of saying, "Not yet, there's more to be done before you're ready." And when you trust that, peace replaces panic. One day, you'll look back and realize that the delay was the most important part of your journey. You'll see how every slow season was teaching you patience, how every unanswered prayer was steering you toward better timing, and how every detour was keeping you aligned with your true path. You'll realize that if you had received what you wanted too soon, it might have broken you instead of blessed you. Every delay has purpose. It's the unseen hand of preparation, the quiet shaping of your soul, the gentle whisper saying, "Be patient, it's not over, it's unfolding." What feels like stillness now is simply the universe adjusting things in your favor. And when the timing is right, everything that once felt delayed will arrive, not late, but right on time. Your mind is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows stronger through consistent training. It can be shaped, strengthened, and reprogrammed by what you repeatedly think, say, and believe. The difference between those who break under pressure and those who rise through it often comes down to mental conditioning. When you teach your mind to focus on the light even in darkness, you begin to build inner strength that no circumstance can take away. The mind, when untrained, reacts, but the mind that's trained responds with wisdom, patience, and calm. Every thought you entertain leaves an imprint. The more you focus on negativity, the more your brain learns to find what's wrong. The more you focus on possibility, the more it learns to find what's right. This is not about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about developing the mental discipline to see meaning in pain. Pain is not the enemy, perception is. The same experience that crushes one person can create another, depending on what their mind has been trained to see. Training your mind begins with awareness. You have to notice your thoughts before you can change them. The average person has thousands of thoughts a day, and most of them are repetitive. If those thoughts are rooted in fear, doubt, or resentment, that becomes your emotional default. But if you intentionally feed your mind with gratitude, hope, and resilience, that becomes your new pattern. Over time, your brain rewires itself. It learns to recognize opportunity where it once saw obstacles. That's how optimism works, not as blind positivity, but as a disciplined focus on what empowers you instead of what drains you. There will always be darkness, uncertainty, loss, failure, rejection, but you can decide what you do with it. You can either let it consume you or let it teach you. When your mind is trained, you don't deny the darkness. You learn to navigate through it with faith and courage. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can this make of me?" That simple shift turns suffering into strength. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice focus, patience, and endurance. Just like physical exercise, mental strength grows through resistance. You can't build muscles without tension, and you can't build resilience without challenge. The setbacks that frustrate you are often the very exercises that strengthen your inner capacity. Each time you choose calm over panic, gratitude over complaint, and hope over fear, you are training your mind. And with every repetition, it becomes easier, the muscle grows, the darkness loses power. Optimism is not naive, it's strategic. It's the ability to see reality clearly without surrendering to despair. It's choosing to believe that meaning exists even in the hardest seasons. When you decide to see lessons instead of losses, your brain starts to look for patterns of growth instead of evidence of failure. You begin to build emotional endurance, the kind of quiet strength that allows you to keep standing when everything inside you wants to give up. Your mind can be your greatest ally or your greatest enemy. If you don't train it, it will default to fear, doubt, and negativity because that's what the world constantly feeds it. But when you take control through mindfulness, reflection, gratitude, and intentional focus, you reclaim your power. You begin to realize that happiness is not a product of your circumstances, it's a product of your perception. Training your mind is not a one-time act, it's a lifelong discipline. It's about choosing the light every single day, especially when darkness feels louder. It's about finding one reason to keep going when everything seems to say stop. Over time, you realize that you can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control what happens within you. That's where your real power lies, in the space between thought and choice. Your mind is a muscle. The more you train it to find meaning in pain, the more unshakable you become. And one day, you'll look back and realize that the darkness you thought would destroy you was actually the weight that made you stronger. Trust the process, not the timing. Life rarely unfolds according to our plans, and yet, everything that happens carries a purpose that only becomes clear in hindsight. We live in a world obsessed with results, quick outcomes, instant answers, visible progress. But real growth doesn't follow a straight line. It comes in cycles, in delays, in seasons that feel confusing or still. The process is often slow because it's building something solid, something meant to last. Timing is not your responsibility, trust is. You may not see what's being formed, but that doesn't mean it's not forming. God's plan often works in silence, beyond the limits of your understanding. When things don't move as fast as you hoped, it's easy to assume you're stuck or that something has gone wrong. But the process isn't meant to comfort your impatience. It's meant to strengthen your faith. Every pause, every detour, every unanswered prayer is shaping something inside you: patience, humility, resilience. These qualities cannot be rushed because they are not taught through speed but through stillness. You don't need to understand every step to move forward. Sometimes your only job is to keep showing up, trusting that even the unseen steps are part of a divine design. Timing is a test of faith. When you can't see results, your belief is tested. You begin to wonder if your efforts matter, if your prayers are heard, if your dreams are still possible. But faith is not about having proof, it's about trusting even without it. You have to remember that what feels like delay to you is often perfect coordination from above. What you call waiting, God calls working. There are connections being formed, opportunities being shaped, hearts being prepared, all aligning with your journey in ways you cannot yet comprehend. The process is the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to be. Every struggle, every challenge, every moment of doubt contributes to that journey. The process refines you, stripping away what doesn't serve you and strengthening what does. If things came easily, you wouldn't grow into the person capable of sustaining the blessing. That's why divine timing feels slow. It's not withholding, it's preparing. You're not being kept from something, you're being made ready for it. There's a rhythm to everything in life, seasons of sowing, waiting, and reaping. You can't rush the harvest just because you're tired of planting. You can't demand results before the roots are strong enough to hold the growth. Trusting the process means believing that what's meant for you will never pass you by. even if it arrives later than you expected. The right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. Timing matters, but it's not yours to control. When you let go of your obsession with timing, you create space for peace. You stop comparing your timeline with others and start focusing on your journey. You begin to realize that God's plan for your life doesn't need your anxiety to function, it only needs your trust. The process may not look the way you imagined, but that doesn't mean it's not working for your good. Every delay, every disappointment, every redirection is leading you exactly where you need to go. You will look back one day and realize that the moments you called waiting were the moments that built your wisdom. You'll see that the detours were actually protection, and the slow seasons were preparation. You'll understand that the plan was always working, even when it felt invisible. The waiting wasn't wasted, it was working, so breathe. You don't need to rush what's divine. You don't need to see the whole picture to take the next step. Trust the process and release the timing. You are not forgotten, you are being guided. The unseen hand that started your journey hasn't stopped working. It's simply arranging everything so that when it all comes together, it arrives not a moment too soon and not a moment too late, but right on time.